you're a front-end designer or front-end developer and you do HTML and CSS all day, every day, I have a tool for you that will make your job faster and easier, and we're going to cover it right now. So what is this tool that I'm going to teach you today? It's called Emmet. Emmet is an abbreviated code snippet tool that's built into Visual Studio Code. Now, Emmet has been around for a while, and you can use it with other editors such as Sublime, Atom, Eclipse, and a number of other ones as well. But it's built into Visual Studio Code, which makes it that much better, in my opinion. So I want to walk you through some HTML and some CSS editing today to show you how its abbreviation toolset makes your job a little bit easier and your coding a little bit faster. So let's jump into the code and take a look. Okay, I'm going to start with emmet.html. It's just a blank HTML document that I've created, and I want to start from the bare bones, from the very beginning, to show you how useful Emmet can be. So like I said, Emmet is an abbreviation toolset. What that means is that you can write abbreviated code that will generate snippets and blocks of code for you. And there are other tools that do similar things. This one is one of my favorites. It's smooth, it's fast, it's very extensive. So I want to walk through some of the things you can do with it. So let's start with just the boilerplate HTML that you use on every single web page that you create. So if I type in the very first character, I type in exclamation point. It will give me an option immediately. There's a drop-down menu that comes up from that line of code, very similar to what like IntelliSense does inside of Visual Studio if you've ever used that. And I know that other IDEs will do similar things. So if you've ever used one of those, it's kind of like that. In this case, I type in exclamation point, which is very similar to the doc type that you've probably seen before inside of HTML. So with HTML5, you have to list the doc type, and this is what that starting point is. But with Emmet, if you just type in the exclamation point and hit tab or enter, it will automatically generate that boilerplate with the head section, the body section. It's wrapped in the right HTML. Everything for an HTML5 page that you need is there. Like I said, I am going to dive into some Bootstrap stuff here in just a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that piece of, or that link tag from their CDN. So from Bootstrap's website, getbootstrap.com, if you go into their documentation or their get starting section, there is the CSS from Bootstrap CDN. So I'm just going to copy that. And before we get too far into this, I'm going to paste that into my HTML. I'm just going to drop it right here below my title tag. Now, we'll get to that in a minute. We'll jump into Bootstrap stuff here in a minute, but I want to walk through the basics of what Emmet can do. So I used Dreamweaver for many, many years back, 5, 6, 7 years ago. I used it for quite a while because it was a very convenient tool, and it did things like Emmet does a little bit, right? Like if I needed a div tag, I could create the beginning tag and it would automatically create the closing tag. Or if I needed an H1, it would start with the opening tag and it would automatically create the closing tag. That was very convenient at the time. But Emmet takes it a whole nother step farther, and I'll get into that in a second. So Visual Studio Code is just a code editor. It's very powerful. It lets you do a lot of stuff. But what I want to walk you guys through is just a basic HTML file, right? So div tags are very common. It's one of the most common tags in HTML. So inside the body, if I just type in div, just a standard div tag, you'll see again, there's an Emmet abbreviation associated with that. If hit enter or tab, it'll automatically create the opening and closing tags and put the cursor right in the middle so I can continue on with my coding. Now, that's fast. It's very convenient. It's a very nice thing to have. So you can do this with pretty much any HTML tag. Type in H1, for instance. Type in anchor, or A for anchor. Do IMG. And it'll automatically add some of these attributes depending on the tag. So like a href for an anchor tag, or a source attribute for an image tag. These are things that are pretty common, and every time you use an anchor tag or image tag, you need these things. So it automatically does it for you and makes your life that much faster. So that's convenient. That's fast. Even that by itself would speed up your daily workflow. But what about CSS? Now, for me, I do mostly front-end work, where I create HTML files and I tie in the CSS classes and things that I've created for that UI. And this is where it starts to get a little bit more powerful for me. So you can automatically assign a class name or an ID attribute to an element. So in this case, if I want a div with a class name, I'll just keep it nice and simple for this example. If I type in dot class name, it'll automatically generate that class name for me. Now, this is very similar to how CSS is done, or it's the same as how CSS is done. So in CSS, you could do like h1.red, and it'll automatically add a red class name to that h1. Same thing for IDs. So if I had, let's say, nav hashtag primary. Now it's going to be a nav tag with a primary ID. So again, these are little things that will make your life a little bit easier. It'll speed up your process that much more. But let's take it, I'll leave this on here. Let's take it a step further. You can also do things like nesting. Now, what do I mean by nesting? Well, a lot of times you don't just have like a div tag with nothing in it. You put more tags in it to build out your HTML, to build out that UI. So in this case, I could have, let's start with an HTML tag that's just nested in normal or by itself, like an ordered list. So if I do UL, hit enter, hit enter again, I can type in LI. Again, that's a pretty fast way to do it. But you could do things like nesting, so UL, and then we create this parent-child relationship of a UL has LI tags in it, so I could do LI. And now it automatically created both of those tags for me. But in most cases, for something like an unordered list, you don't only use one, you use multiple, right? So you could do UL, caret, LI, asterisk, or like multiplication, 3. And now it's going to create 3 of those for me. So now I did an entire block of code in just a couple characters. But what if you need CSS associated with that? So let's do UL caret li dot list item. Now you can associate that list item with it, and it works the same if you're going to do li dot list item times 3. And again, now it'll create 3 of those. So again, this is pretty nice. This is very quick. It adds a lot to it. But let's start using something. This is great. This is convenient, right? But let's go ahead and take it another step further. I'm added Bootstrap earlier, so let's look at a very common Bootstrap practice. We'll have a container with a row and a couple columns in it, okay? So dot container. Now I don't have to put the div in front of it. If I do just dot container, it will automatically default to a div, which is nice. So dot container caret dot row caret dot call. Let's do -4 times 3. So now again, I've created this entire block of code using Bootstrap in this case to create an entire row of content. Now you can take this even further. So let's do again dot container caret dot row caret dot call dash. Let's do 6 this time. Now I should be able to create content and hit enter, and now it will add that content inside. I forgot to multiply this one, so it only did the 1. But now you can see that we have content inside of there. Now content you can add through using curly brackets. So I've shown you how to do parent-child relationships, but what about sibling relationships? So let's say that you have a document that somebody's passed you to add copy to a website, and it has a headline, a couple paragraphs, then some H2s, a couple more paragraphs, another H2, a couple more paragraphs, and you want to auto-generate this pretty quick. So in this case, you could do H1, and then if you add the plus sign, now you're creating a sibling relationship. So they're going to be on the same level opposed to being nested. So let's do an H1, a paragraph, add another plus sign, we'll do an H2 plus P times 3, then we'll do plus another H2, I suppose, then plus P plus UL, do a bracket or a caret LI times 3, and then hit enter. Now what this is going to do is now we have the H1, we have a paragraph, we have an H2, we have a couple paragraphs, another one, and then we also have like our unordered list here. So if someone were to hand you a bunch of copy and say, hey, I need this added to a website, you could generate that entire piece very quickly just doing something like this. So there's other things that are kind of neat about this. So in addition to the typical HTML tags, Emmet, like I said, is an abbreviation tool set. So there are a number of abbreviations that you can use. So things like header, HDR, or footer, FTR. So in this case, there are a number of abbreviations, and I'm going to give you the documentation you need. I'll link it in the description below, and it'll give you all of their abbreviations and things like that that they have. We'll link straight to Emmet's website so you can see it. But if there's ever a time that you're not sure what tag you need or what abbreviation you need, you can start typing things that you might need. So for instance, like block quote. If I just type in BL, you'll see that it starts to do it. They have what's called a fuzzy search. So it's not really specific. Again, if I type in BL, well, that's block quote, but you also see that boilerplate is in here, the HTML boilerplate. So B and L are associated with that. You could do other things, if you type in H. Not only do you have all the different headings, H1, H2, H3, you have HTML, you have HDR or header, you have both options there, you have HR for a horizontal rule. There's all the different options in there because it uses a fuzzy search. So if you're not too sure which one you need, the list will give it to you. All right, guys, that's it for me today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Definitely check out the description below where I've added the documentation links to Emmet's website and a link to Visual Studio Code where if you're interested in it, you can download it for yourself.